I watched through the crack in my bedroom door as Claire tore through my jewelry box like a rabid animal, her perfectly manicured nails scattering cheap chains and costume earrings across my dresser. She was looking for the sapphire necklace, the one piece of real value I'd ever owned, the one thing our grandmother had given me before she died. The necklace that, in this timeline, was already locked away in a safety deposit box 3 states away. "Where is it?" she hissed, upending the box completely. "I know she keeps it here. That little bitch doesn't deserve it anyway." From my hiding spot, I smiled. This was different from last time. Last time I'd been at school when she'd stolen it, sold it to pay for her spring break trip to Cancun, and convinced our parents I'd lost it through my own carelessness. Last time, I'd cried for weeks while everyone told me I was irresponsible and didn't deserve nice things. Last time, I died at 23, broke and alone in a studio apartment, having put myself through college while my family funded Claire's endless failures. But I'd been given something impossible, a second chance. I'd woken up on my 16th birthday, 6 years in the past, with every painful memory of my first life intact. This time, I knew exactly what was coming, and this time, I was ready. "Mom!" Claire's shriek carried through the entire house. "Mom, Emma stole her necklace!" I counted to 5, then emerged from my room, expression perfectly calibrated to confused innocence. "What's going on?" My mother appeared at the top of the stairs, her face already set in that familiar expression of disappointment she reserved exclusively for me. Claire had inherited her sharp features and calculating eyes. I'd gotten my father's softer looks, which, in my mother's opinion, made me plain and forgettable. "Emma, where is your grandmother's necklace?" Mom's voice was ice. "In my jewelry box, where I always keep it." I kept my tone even, reasonable. "Why?" "Don't lie to me." She pushed past me into my room, surveying the chaos Claire had created. "Your sister needs to borrow it for the spring formal tonight, and apparently you've hidden it to be spiteful." The spring formal. Of course. In my previous life, Claire had worn that necklace to the dance, accidentally left it in her date's car, and claimed it was stolen. The insurance money, because yes, she'd convinced Mom to insure it under her own name, had funded her summer in Europe. "I didn't hide anything," I said calmly. "But I'm not comfortable lending out Grandma's necklace. It's the only thing I have from her." "It's just a necklace, Emma. Stop being so selfish." Mom's eyes narrowed. "Your sister has an important night, and you're going to ruin it because you're jealous." "I'm not jealous. I just don't want to lend it out." "You don't have a choice." Mom turned to Claire, her voice softening instantly. "Honey, don't worry. We'll find it. Emma probably moved it because she knew you'd want to wear it. She's always been like this." I watched Claire's performance, the trembling lip, the tears welling in her eyes, the way she made herself smaller and more vulnerable. She was good. She'd had our mother wrapped around her finger since we were children, and she knew exactly how to weaponize every moment. "It's okay, Mom," Claire whispered. I really wanted to wear something special tonight. Tyler said I should wear blue, and that necklace is perfect. And I just thought Emma would understand what it's like to want to feel pretty for once." The barb landed exactly as intended. Mom's expression hardened further as she looked at me. "Emma, I'm giving you one chance to do the right thing. Where is the necklace?" In my first life, I would have caved. I would have handed it over, desperate for any scrap of approval, any hint that maybe this time they'd see me as worth something. But I died knowing the truth. Nothing I did would ever be enough. Claire would always take, Mom would always enable her, and I would always be the villain in their story. "I honestly don't know what you're talking about," I said. "I haven't touched my jewelry box in days." That was technically true. I'd emptied it 2 weeks ago during a study session at my friend Jessica's house. Everything of value was gone. The necklace, Grandma's pearl earrings, the vintage brooch she'd left me, all safe, all far away from Claire's grasping hands. "Fine." Mom's voice dropped to that dangerous quiet that meant she was truly angry. "You're grounded. No phone, no computer, no leaving the house except for school. Maybe when you're ready to stop being vindictive, we can revisit this conversation." But I didn't. Enough! She held up her hand. "Claire, honey, let's go to the mall. We'll buy you something even better." I watched them leave, listened to Claire's grateful coos and Mom's soothing reassurances. My father would come home later, hear Mom's version of events, and take her side without question. He always did, but that was fine. I'd known this was coming. In fact, I'd counted on it. Because this time, I wasn't playing their game. This time, I had a plan. The abuse hadn't started with the necklace, of course. It never does. Looking back with the clarity of hindsight and a second life, I could trace it back to my earliest memories. Claire was 3 years older, planned and wanted. I was the accident, the surprise pregnancy that had derailed my mother's career ambitions and forced my parents into a house they couldn't quite afford. Mom never said it directly, but I'd heard enough whispered arguments, enough bitter comments to friends when she thought I wasn't listening. If it wasn't for Emma, I'd be a senior partner by now. We could have afforded the house in Westchester if we only had one child. Claire was always such an easy baby. Emma cried constantly like she wanted to punish me. Claire learned early that the best way to secure her position was to make mine worse. She was a master of the subtle sabotage. Homework hidden right before it was due, clothes accidentally ruined, money taken from my piggy bank and spent on candy she'd share with our parents to prove how generous she was with her allowance. When I was 7, I won a writing contest at school. The prize was a $50 savings bond and a trophy. I was so proud. For once, I'd done something nobody could take away from me. Claire broke the trophy that night, then cried to our parents that I'd attacked her when she'd congratulated me. Mom made me apologize while Claire smirked behind her shoulder. The savings bond disappeared from my desk a week later. When I asked about it, Dad said I must have lost it, and did I know how irresponsible that made me look? When I was 10, I made the mistake of making a friend, a real friend. A girl named Sophie, who didn't care that my clothes were hand-me-downs or that I brought packed lunches while everyone else bought hot lunch. Sophie liked me for me. We had sleepovers, traded books, made up elaborate fantasy worlds. Then Sophie's family got a pool, and suddenly Claire was interested in my friendship. She'd show up at Sophie's house when I was there, armed with makeup and gossip about high school boys, stories about parties and popularity. Within 2 months, Sophie only wanted to hang out when Claire was around. Within 4 months, she stopped calling me altogether. "You should be grateful," Mom told me when I cried about it. "Claire is teaching you how to be social. Maybe if you paid attention, you'd have more friends." High school was worse. Claire was a senior when I was a freshman, which meant she controlled the narrative. She told everyone I was a pathetic hanger-on who tried to copy her style. She told her friends I was weird and obsessive. When I tried out for the school play and got a lead role on my own merit because I'd worked hard and prepared, she convinced the director I'd only been cast because the teacher felt sorry for me as Claire's unfortunate sister. I quit the play. It was easier than fighting. By 16, I'd learned to keep my head down, to want nothing, to expect nothing. I focused on grades because academic success was one thing Claire couldn't take from me. She barely maintained a C average despite expensive tutors and Mom doing half her homework. But Grandma's death changed something. Grandma had been my only ally, the only person who saw me clearly. She'd lived in Florida, too far away to intervene in daily life, but close enough in spirit that her weekly phone calls had been my lifeline. She told me I was smart, talented, destined for great things. She promised that one day I'd be free of all this. When she died, she left me the necklace and a note. "For Emma, who has the strength to survive a family that doesn't deserve her. Wear this and remember, you are worth more than they'll ever know." Mom tried to intercept it, claiming Grandma must have been confused, that surely such a valuable piece was meant for Claire as the eldest. But Grandma had been explicit in her will, had even included a clause that the necklace was mine alone and could not be borrowed, lent, or gifted to anyone else. It was the first time I'd won anything against Claire, and my family never forgave me for it. The theft attempt was just the beginning. What came after, in my first life, had been a masterclass in systematic destruction. Claire hadn't stopped at the necklace. After selling it, she'd moved on to forging my signature on a credit card application, racking up debt in my name that I discovered only when I tried to get student loans for college. Mom and Dad had refused to help me dispute it. You probably applied for it and forgot, Dad had said. You've always been careless with money. I'd worked 3 jobs through college while Claire partied through an expensive private university on our parents' dime, failing out after 2 years. When I'd finally graduated with honors and landed a good job, Claire had shown up at my apartment with suitcases, claiming Mom and Dad had kicked her out and she had nowhere else to go. In reality, they'd suggested she give me some space for a few weeks while they renovated her childhood bedroom into a suite. She'd lived with me for 14 months, eating my food, using my car, stealing my clothes, and bringing random men home at all hours. When I'd finally snapped and told her to leave, she'd destroyed half my belongings and told our parents I'd been physically abusive. They'd believed her instantly. I'd spent my early 20s estranged from my family, which should have been a blessing but felt like failure. I'd been so conditioned to seek their approval that losing it, even when I knew they were wrong, had felt like losing myself. The final blow had come when I was 23. I'd been promoted to a senior position at work, finally making enough money to feel secure. Claire had called, crying, saying she'd made a terrible mistake and stolen money from Mom and Dad, and they were going to press charges unless she paid them back $15,000 immediately. I'd been so stunned that Claire was actually facing consequences that I'd emptied my savings to help her. I'd thought maybe this was a turning point, that maybe we could finally have a real relationship now that she was being honest. She'd taken my money, blocked my number, and moved to California with her boyfriend. I'd found out later from a former mutual friend that there had never been any stolen money. Mom and Dad had been in on the scheme, convincing Claire she deserved a fresh start, funded by the sister who owed her for years of jealousy. 6 months later, I died in a car accident on my way home from my second job, the one I'd taken to rebuild my savings. It hadn't been dramatic or meaningful, just a drunk driver running a red light, and suddenly I was gone. Except I wasn't gone. I'd woken up gasping in my childhood bed, my 16th birthday circled on the calendar on my wall, my phone buzzing with a text from Jessica asking if I wanted to come over after school. I'd spent the first week convinced I was having a psychotic break. The second week, I'd tested my knowledge of the future, small things like quiz answers and the outcome of a basketball game. Everything matched my memories. By the third week, I'd accepted the impossible. I'd been given a second chance at the worst years of my life, but with all the knowledge of how it would end. And I'd decided that this time, I wasn't going to be a victim. The night of the spring formal, while Claire was out dancing in a rental necklace that cost Mom $300, I was in my room researching emancipation laws and scholarship opportunities. The grounding didn't bother me. I hadn't planned to go anywhere anyway. I'd learned to enjoy my solitude in my first life, those brief periods when Claire wasn't around to poison everything. Around midnight, my door cracked open. Dad stood in the hallway, backlit and awkward. "Emma, you awake?" "Yeah." I closed my laptop, waited. He came in, sat on the edge of my bed like he used to when I was little, and he still sometimes remembered I was his daughter. "Your mom told me about the necklace situation." "Okay." She's upset with you. She thinks you're being difficult on purpose." "I'm not," I said. "I just didn't want to lend out Grandma's necklace." "I understand that, but Emma," he sighed, rubbed his face. "Sometimes you have to compromise. Family means sharing, even when it's hard." "Does Claire ever compromise?" The question seemed to startle him. "That's different. Claire's older. She has different responsibilities." "Like what? What responsibilities does Claire have that I don't?" "Emma, don't do this. Don't make me choose." That was the core of it, wasn't it? Every conflict came down to them choosing Claire. Every single time. "I'm not making you choose anything," I said quietly. "I just don't want to give away Grandma's necklace. That's all." He stood up, disappointed in me again. "I thought you were more mature than this. When you're ready to apologize to your sister and your mother, let me know." After he left, I lay in the dark and remembered my 23rd birthday in my first life. I'd spent it alone, eating takeout in my studio apartment. No calls from family. Claire had been in California. Mom and dad had been too busy. I'd died 7 weeks later, and according to the internet research I'd done in this timeline, my funeral had been small. Mom and dad had been there. Claire had been too devastated to attend, but had posted a lengthy Instagram tribute calling me her troubled little sister, who she'd tried so hard to help. The post had gone viral. She'd gained 50,000 followers off my death. Not this time. This time I was going to live. And more than that, I was going to win. The key to my plan wasn't just protecting my things or avoiding Claire's schemes. I'd learned in my first life that defense wasn't enough. My family would always find new ways to take from me, new reasons why I owed them everything, while they owed me nothing. No, I needed to build something they couldn't touch, couldn't steal, couldn't diminish. I needed to become so successful, so independent, so completely beyond their reach that they could never hurt me again. And I needed to make sure that when they inevitably tried to ride my coattails, there would be consequences. The morning after the spring formal, I created a detailed timeline. I had 6 years until my death date in the original timeline, but I wasn't planning to need that long. I'd graduated high school at 17, finished college by 21. This time, I'd be faster. First priority, money. In my first life, I'd worked retail and food service, minimum wage jobs that barely covered necessities. But I had something I hadn't had before, knowledge of the future. I knew which stocks would explode, which cryptocurrencies would soar, which small companies would be bought out by tech giants. The problem was I was 16 with no income and no capital. I needed seed money. That's where Grandma's necklace came in, the real reason I'd secured it so carefully. The necklace was worth approximately $30,000 according to the appraisal I'd had done in my first timeline. If I sold it strategically, I could turn that into significant capital. But I couldn't just sell it. That would raise questions, trigger the same accusations of irresponsibility. I needed to be smarter. I spent the next week researching, planning, preparing. The grounding helped, actually. It meant Claire and Mom left me alone, assuming I was suffering appropriately. Dad brought me meals with a hangdog expression, clearly hoping I'd break down and apologize. I smiled, thanked him, and continued working. On Saturday, I told my parents I was going to the library to study for an AP exam. This was technically still grounded behavior, so Mom agreed with visible reluctance. Be back by dinner. Of course. Instead, I took the bus to the train station, the train to Jessica's house, 3 towns over, and retrieved the jewelry I'd stashed there. Jessica's parents both worked weekends, and Jessica herself was covering my alibi, ready to swear I'd been studying with her all day if anyone asked. Are you sure about this? Jessica asked as I examined the necklace in her bedroom. That thing is gorgeous. Don't you want to keep it? I want to survive more, I said. And this is my survival fund. Jessica didn't understand. How could she? Her parents were kind, supportive, present. They came to her recitals and celebrated her achievements. She lived in a different world than I did. But she trusted me, which was worth more than gold. She drove me to the jewelry district in the city, waited while I got appraisals from 3 different dealers, and helped me negotiate the final sale to an estate buyer who specialized in vintage pieces. He paid me $28,000 and no questions asked beyond checking my ID to confirm I was the legal owner per Grandma's will. You could get more at auction, he said, counting out the bills, but this is fair for a quick sale. It's perfect. Jessica drove us back, and I split the money into 5 different hiding places in her room, under the carpet, inside book spines, sewn into the lining of an old coat. Are you going to tell me what this is about? I'm going to change my life, I said. And I can't do it from my house. Can I use your address for some things? Legally, I mean. I need somewhere my family can't intercept mail. Emma, are they hurting you? Not physically, not in ways that left bruises, but I could see Jessica trying to understand, trying to reconcile the friend she knew with the hints of darkness I was revealing. They take things from me, I said finally. Money, opportunities, credit. I need to build something they can't access, and I need to do it now. Okay, Jessica said. Whatever you need. Building a portfolio at 16 was easier said than done. Most brokerage accounts required parental permission. But I'd known this would be an obstacle, had prepared for it. There were ways around age restrictions if you were creative. Some platforms accepted accounts opened by custodians, adults who managed money on behalf of minors. Some countries had lower age requirements, and some investment opportunities didn't require traditional brokerage accounts at all. I opened a Roth IRA through a small online bank using Jessica's address and my own social security number. I had documentation proving I had earned income. I'd spent a weekend helping Jessica's mom with data entry at her small business, getting paid legitimately in exchange. It wasn't much, but it was enough to satisfy the legal requirements. From there, I diversified. Cryptocurrency exchanges were the Wild West in this time period, and I opened accounts with 3 different platforms. I remembered the early days of Bitcoin, how it had seemed like a joke until suddenly it wasn't. I remembered which altcoins would boom, which would crash, the exact timing of the market surges. I put $10,000 into crypto, spread across 7 different coins. The remaining 18,000 went into stocks, not meme stocks or gambles, but carefully chosen companies I knew would be acquisition targets, startups that would explode, pharmaceutical companies about to announce major breakthroughs. This was the advantage of Rebirth. Perfect information. I wasn't gambling, I was collecting debt the universe owed me. Within 3 months, my portfolio had grown to $45,000. Within 6 months, it had broken 6 figures. I tracked every penny in slides. Encrypted spreadsheets on Jessica's computer, never my own. I received paper statements at Jessica's address, filed them in a locked box under her bed. My family had no idea I had any money at all. Meanwhile, at home, things escalated exactly as I'd remembered. Claire discovered that her necklace from the spring formal had disappeared, and somehow this was also my fault. Mom accused me of stealing it out of spite, even though I'd been home and grounded the entire night she'd worn it. The rental company charged Mom a replacement fee of $500, which Mom decided I should pay back through chores and surrendering my allowance for the next year. I agreed without fighting. My allowance was $20 a month anyway, barely enough for anything. And the chores just meant I had excuses to be in different parts of the house, gathering information, documenting everything. Because that was phase 2 of my plan, evidence. I'd learned in my first life that people like Claire operate with impunity because nobody documents their abuse. It's all small things, easily dismissed, always with plausible deniability. But small things add up, and when you have years of proof, the narrative changes. I bought a small camera online, shipped to Jessica's address. I set it up in my room, hidden inside a fake air freshener. It caught Claire going through my things when she thought I wasn't home. It caught her reading my diary, trying on my clothes, stealing cash from my desk drawer. I installed keylogger software on the family computer after watching a YouTube tutorial. Within a week, I had Claire's passwords to everything: email, social media, bank accounts. I didn't use them immediately. I just collected information, built my case. I recorded conversations on my phone, kept a detailed journal with dates and times of every incident. When Mom accused me of lying about something Claire had broken, I had timestamps and photos. When Dad claimed I was making up the theft of my allowance money, I had video evidence of Claire pocketing it. I didn't show them any of this. Not yet. They wouldn't have cared anyway. I knew from experience that evidence didn't matter to people who'd already decided you were guilty. But I'd need it later, when the stakes were higher. The summer before my senior year of high school, Claire announced she was pregnant. The family erupted in chaos exactly as I remembered. Mom was devastated, not because Claire was 19, unemployed, and in a relationship with a guy she'd been dating for 6 weeks, but because what would people think? Dad tried to be supportive, but mostly seemed lost, unsure how to handle the situation. Claire, of course, made herself the tragic heroine. She cried beautifully, talked about how scared she was, how she'd made a mistake but was determined to do the right thing. Tyler, the boyfriend, proposed within a week. Mom started planning a wedding that would cost more than my entire college to fund. In my first timeline, I'd been away at college when this happened, insulated from the worst of it. I'd only learned about the pregnancy when Claire called, asking for money for baby supplies, which I'd later discovered had actually been money for her bachelorette party. This time, I was home for all of it, and this time, I knew the truth that nobody else knew. Claire wasn't actually pregnant. I'd discovered it accidentally in my first life, years later, when Claire got drunk at a family dinner and let it slip. She'd faked a pregnancy test, convinced Tyler to propose, and then claimed she'd miscarried 2 weeks after the wedding. The whole thing had been a scheme to lock down Tyler, whose family had money, and secure a wedding that doubled as a massive gift grab. In my first timeline, Tyler had divorced her 3 years later after discovering she'd been systematically draining his bank account. In this timeline, I wasn't going to let it get that far. The night Claire announced her pregnancy, I was in my room, door closed, music playing softly. I heard the commotion downstairs, the gasps and sobs, and I knew the script. Mom would cry, Dad would be stoic, Claire would be fragile and brave. I gave it an hour, then went downstairs to find Mom and Claire huddled together on the couch, looking at wedding magazines. Emma, Mom's voice was cold, I suppose Claire told you her news. I heard. I looked at my sister, at her performance of vulnerability. Congratulations, Claire. Thank you. Her voice was small, uncertain. Then she looked at me with those calculating eyes, and I saw the real Claire underneath. I hope you'll be supportive. I know we've had our differences, but family is supposed to be there for each other. The manipulation was so blatant, it was almost funny. She was setting up her narrative. If I questioned anything, I'd be the cruel sister who couldn't be happy for her. If I supported her, I'd be complicit in her schemes. Of course, I said. What do you need? Mom's surprise was visible. She'd expected me to make a scene, to be difficult. That's what I would have done in my first life, young and stupid and still trying to stand up for what was right. But I'd learned. Sometimes you have to let the con play out. Sometimes the best revenge is letting someone think they've won right up until the moment you destroy them. Well, Mom said carefully, we'll need to plan a wedding fairly quickly, before Claire starts showing. We were thinking late August, something small and elegant. That sounds nice. And since you're Claire's only sister, you'll be the maid of honor, of course. In my first timeline, I'd been away at college and hadn't been part of the wedding party at all, a fact that had hurt more than I'd admitted. Now, being included felt like a trap, because it was. I'd be honored, I said, keeping my face neutral. Claire's smile was pure victory. She thought she'd won again, thought she'd maneuvered me into supporting her scheme. She had no idea I'd already won, because I'd spent the last year and a half building an empire she couldn't imagine. My portfolio was now worth almost $300,000 thanks to several strategic moves in cryptocurrency and a biotech stock that had tripled when their drug got FDA approval. I'd turned 16 in March, taken the GED in May, and passed with perfect scores. I'd already applied to colleges, real colleges, prestigious programs with full scholarships. I'd been accepted to 3 Ivy League schools and a top-tier tech university in California. I'd chosen the California school because it was 3,000 miles away and offered the best computer science program in the country. I'd secured scholarships and grants that covered everything, and my portfolio investments would cover living expenses several times over. I was leaving in 6 weeks. My family didn't know yet. I'd tell them after the wedding, after I'd played my role perfectly, after I'd let Claire think she'd successfully used me one more time. Because the real victory wasn't stopping her scheme. It was being so far above it that it didn't matter. The wedding planning was a masterclass in family dysfunction. Mom threw herself into it with manic energy, spending money they didn't have on flowers and venues and designer dresses. Dad quietly paid the bills and looked increasingly stressed. Tyler, the groom, seemed dazed and scared, a 20-year-old kid who'd accidentally gotten trapped in someone else's drama. I actually felt bad for him. In my first timeline, I'd blamed him for enabling Claire, but seeing it play out again, I realized he was another victim. He'd thought he was dating a fun, spontaneous girl. Now he was being railroaded into marriage by her crying mother and his own sense of obligation. Claire played her part beautifully. She bought pregnancy books, talked about baby names, placed her hand on her still, flat stomach with that dreamy expression. If I didn't know the truth, even I might have believed her. But I did know the truth, and I documented everything. The pregnancy test she'd ordered online, designed to always show positive. the purchase of prenatal vitamins that she left visible on the bathroom counter but never actually took. The private conversations I recorded where she talked to her real boyfriend, not Tyler, the other one, about how she'd gotten the idiot to propose. That was a new detail, one I hadn't known in my first life. Claire wasn't just scamming Tyler. She was actively cheating on him with a guy named Marcus, who thought the whole thing was hilarious. "You're terrible," Marcus said on one recording I captured. They were in Claire's room while Mom and Dad were at work, and I'd hidden a voice recorder under her bed. "What happens when he figures out you're not actually pregnant?" "Miscarriage," Claire said simply. "It happens all the time, and I'll be so devastated that he won't dare. Leave me. Plus, I'll have the wedding gifts and the joint bank account we're opening. By the time he realizes what's happening, I'll have enough money to leave him and move in with you." "You're going to break that poor guy's heart." "He'll survive. And anyway, his family has money. He should be grateful I'm even pretending to want him." I listened to this recording 3 times, making sure I had clean audio. Then I backed it up to 5 different cloud accounts. This was my insurance policy, my nuclear option if things went wrong. But I wasn't planning to use it yet, because I had a better idea. 3 weeks before the wedding, I finally told my parents about California. We were at dinner, one of the rare nights when everyone was home and sitting together. Claire was showing Mom bridesmaid dress options on her phone. Dad was reviewing bills with a furrowed brow. I'd made pasta because I was the one who cooked when Mom was too tired and Claire was too busy. "I have some news," I said during a lull in conversation. Mom didn't look up from the phone. "I took the GED in May. I passed, and I've been accepted to Stanford. I'm starting in September." The silence was immediate and total. Claire's phone clattered to the table. Mom's head snapped up. Dad froze mid-bite. "What?" Mom's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm going to Stanford, full scholarship plus grants. It's all set up. I leave August 28th. You..." Dad put down his fork. "Emma, that's not funny. It's not a joke. I have all the acceptance letters in my room. Do you want to see them?" "How could you? You're only 16. You haven't even graduated high school. I took the GED. I'm legally allowed to go to college. Stanford reviewed my transcripts and test scores and accepted me into their computer science program with a full ride." Mom's face had gone from white to red. "And you didn't think to discuss this with us? You just made this enormous decision on your own?" "I didn't think you'd care," I said honestly. "You've been pretty busy with Claire's wedding." "Don't you dare," Mom hissed. "Don't you dare make this about Claire's wedding. You're just jealous that she's getting attention for once." "For once?" The words escaped before I could stop them. "Mom, when is Claire not getting attention?" "That's not fair," Claire interjected, her voice wounded. "Emma, I know you're going through something right now, some kind of phase where you think the world is against you, but this is ridiculous. Lying about college to get attention during my wedding? I'm not lying, and I'm not trying to steal attention. I'm telling you I'm leaving in 3 weeks." "You're not going anywhere," Mom said flatly. "You're 16 years old. You need parental permission to leave the state, and I'm not giving it." I'd prepared for this. Actually, under California law, I don't need permission if I'm financially independent and attending an accredited university. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I have my own bank account, my own funds, and a legal residence in California. There's nothing you can do to stop me. That last part was a bluff. I hadn't actually established California residency yet, but I said it with enough confidence that they believed me. Dad looked like he'd been struck. "Emma, why are you doing this? Why are you trying to hurt us?" "I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I'm trying to have a life." "By abandoning your family?" Claire's tears were flowing now, real or fake. I couldn't tell anymore. "By running away right before my wedding?" "Emma, I need you. You're supposed to be my maid of honor. How can you do this to me?" And there it was. The wedding was 3 weeks away. My departure date was 1 week after. I'd timed it perfectly. "I'll be there for your wedding," I said. "I'm leaving after." "No." Mom stood up, towering over me. "You're not going to California. You're not going to college at 16. You're going to finish high school like a normal person, and then we'll discuss your options. This conversation is over. It's really not. I stood too, matched her energy. I'm going to Stanford. I've worked for this, I've earned it, and you can't stop me. You can be happy for me or you can be angry, but either way, I'm leaving on August 28th. I left the table, went to my room, and locked the door. Behind me, I heard the explosion. Mom screaming, Claire sobbing, Dad's rumbling voice trying to mediate. They'd be at it for hours. But it didn't matter. I'd drawn my line in the sand. And more importantly, I'd distracted them from the real move I was about to make. The week before the wedding, I helped Claire with all the last-minute preparations. I picked up her dress from alterations, confirmed the caterer, organized the seating chart. I played the perfect sister, supportive and selfless, and I watched Claire relax into the certainty that she'd won again. I'm glad you're coming around, she told me 2 days before the wedding. We were in her room steaming the bridesmaids' dresses. I know Mom and Dad are still upset about your college thing, but I think it's great. Really? You're so smart, Emma. You should go to Stanford. The lie was so smooth, I almost admired it. She didn't think it was great. She was furious that I was leaving, that I'd found a way out. But she was focused on her own scheme, too distracted to really worry about mine. Thanks, Claire. I mean it, and hey, maybe when you're rich and successful, you can help out your big sister, right? She laughed like it was a joke, but I heard the calculation underneath. She was already planning how to exploit my future success. Maybe, I said neutrally. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. The ceremony was at a boutique hotel, elegant and expensive. Claire looked stunning in her white dress. Tyler looked terrified at the altar, and Mom cried throughout the entire ceremony. I stood as maid of honor, held Claire's bouquet, smiled for the photos. I gave a toast at the reception about how happy I was for my sister, how she deserved all the love in the world. I danced with Dad during the father-daughter dance when he couldn't find Claire. She was outside with Marcus, I later discovered, having a quick makeout session behind the catering truck. It was perfect, almost too perfect, the last beautiful moment before everything came crashing down. During the reception, while everyone was drinking and dancing and celebrating, I excused myself to the bathroom. Instead, I went to the hotel's business center, logged into the computer, and sent 3 emails. The first was to Tyler from an anonymous account. It contained audio files of Claire discussing her fake pregnancy, transcripts of her conversations with Marcus, and bank records showing purchases that proved she wasn't actually pregnant. Wrong dates for doctor's appointments, no actual prenatal care, purchases of fake test kits. The second was to Mom and Dad from the same anonymous account. It contained years of evidence, videos of Claire stealing from me, recordings of her admitting to framing me, documentation of every lie, every manipulation, every crime. I included the recent recordings about Tyler, too. Let them see exactly who they'd been protecting all these years. The third was to Tyler's parents. Just the audio of Claire and Marcus discussing how they planned to drain Tyler's bank account and leave him. I'd timed the emails to send at midnight, after the reception ended, after everyone went home. I wanted them to have this one last perfect moment before the truth destroyed everything. Then I went back to the reception, danced with my family, hugged Claire goodbye, and played my role until the very end. I didn't wait around to see the fallout. I'd already moved most of my important belongings to Jessica's house over the past weeks. The morning after the wedding, while my family was presumably sleeping off hangovers, I packed the last of my things into 2 suitcases, called a rideshare, and left. Jessica's parents had agreed to let me stay with them for the week before I left for California. They didn't ask too many questions. I'd told them there were family issues, and they'd graciously given me space. I found out what happened through Jessica, who heard it from her mom, who heard it from a mutual friend of my mother's. Tyler had opened his email around 1 a.m, unable to sleep. He'd listened to the audio recordings, read the evidence, and by 2 a.m. he'd called his parents. By 3 a.m., they'd all confronted Claire in her honeymoon suite. Claire had tried to deny everything at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. Tyler's parents had demanded an annulment. Tyler, heartbroken and furious, had agreed. Claire had called Mom and Dad hysterical, and that's when they'd opened their own email. According to Jessica's mom, my parents had spent the next 6 hours in Sonane, their house, going through years of evidence of Claire's abuse. They'd seen her stealing from me, framing me, manipulating them. They'd seen the truth of who their golden child really was. Mom had tried calling me 53 times that first day. Dad had tried 37. Claire had tried 8 before giving up. They'd gone to my room, found it empty, and realized I was really gone. Jessica showed me some of the texts. Mom, Emma, please come home. We need to talk. Mom, I know you sent those emails. What you did was cruel and vindictive. Mom, you've destroyed your sister's marriage. Are you happy now? Mom, fine. Don't respond. But you're not going to California. We're not signing anything. I didn't respond to any of them. There was nothing left to say. Tyler's family had filed for an annulment claiming fraud, which was granted within 48 hours. They'd also pressed charges against Claire for the fake pregnancy scheme. Apparently, in our state, using a fake pregnancy to coerce someone into marriage could be prosecuted as fraud. Claire was arrested 3 days after her wedding. The mugshot made local news. "Local woman arrested for marriage fraud," read the headline, and the article detailed how she'd faked a pregnancy to trap a wealthy boyfriend into marriage. Mom and Dad tried to defend her at first, telling anyone who'd listen that it was all a misunderstanding. But the evidence was public record now, and social media had gotten hold of it. Claire's fake pregnancy became a viral story, the cautionary tale of a con artist bride. Suddenly, everyone was looking at my family differently, and suddenly, they were asking questions about me, the younger sister who'd disappeared right after the wedding. Some of Mom's friends reached out to Jessica's mom trying to get information. Where was Emma? Was she okay? Had her family really treated her the way those recordings suggested? The narrative was shifting, and my family couldn't control it anymore. They weren't the tragic parents of a troubled daughter. They were enablers of an abuser. And I wasn't the difficult child. I was the survivor who'd finally escaped. I left for California on August 28th, as planned. Jessica and her parents drove me to the airport. I hugged them goodbye, promised to call, and boarded the plane with nothing but my 2 suitcases and my laptop. I didn't look back. Stanford was everything I'd hoped for and more. The computer science program was rigorous and challenging, but I thrived. I'd spent my first life struggling through college while working 3 jobs. This time, I could focus entirely on my studies. My portfolio investments continued to grow, providing more than enough money for living expenses and more. I made friends, real friends, people who liked me for who I was. I joined study groups and coding clubs. I went to parties and football games and felt, for the first time in my life, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. My family continued trying to reach me for the first few months. The messages evolved through stages. Anger. How dare you abandon us after everything we've done for you? Bargaining. Please come home for Christmas. We can work this out. Guilt. Your mother is devastated. You've broken her heart. Denial. You're being dramatic. What we did wasn't that bad. I blocked them after the 20th email. There was nothing they could say that would change what had happened, nothing that would make me want to go back. Claire's criminal charges were eventually dropped. Tyler's family decided not to pursue prosecution, probably to avoid further publicity. But the damage was done. Claire's reputation was destroyed, her marriage was annulled, and she'd become locally infamous as the fake pregnancy bride. She'd moved back in with Mom and Dad, according to the occasional updates I got from Jessica. She wasn't working, wasn't going to school, just sitting at home while our parents tried to figure out how to rebuild her life. I felt no sympathy. She'd had every advantage, every opportunity, and she'd used them all to hurt people. This was consequence, not cruelty. I graduated from Stanford in 3 years instead of 4, summa cum laude. My portfolio was now worth over $2 million thanks to Bitcoin hitting heights that seemed insane, but that I'd known were coming. I'd also filed several software patents during my time at school, security algorithms that I knew would be valuable in the coming years. I was 20 years old with a Stanford degree, a multi-million-dollar net worth, and no family obligations. I was free in ways I'd never imagined possible. I got a job at a prestigious tech company in San Francisco, not because I needed the money, but because I wanted the experience. Within 6 months, I was promoted to senior developer. Within a year, I was leading a team. I bought a house in Pacific Heights, nothing huge, but beautiful and mine. I decorated it exactly how I wanted, filled it with books and art and comfortable furniture. I hosted dinner parties for my friends, went hiking on weekends, took a pottery class just because it sounded fun. I was living the life I dreamed of in my first timeline, the life I died before I could achieve. And it was better than I'd imagined because I'd earned every bit of it myself. The contact came 4 years after I'd left home. I was 24 years old, working on my second startup, preparing to launch an app that would revolutionize mobile security. My net worth had broken 8 figures. I owned 2 houses and drove a Tesla. I'd been featured in Forbes' 30 Under 30 list. The email came from a lawyer representing my mother's estate. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Estate. That meant she was dead. The email explained that my mother had passed away from a sudden heart attack. The funeral had been a week ago. I hadn't been informed because they hadn't been able to locate me. I'd changed my phone number and hadn't updated my contact information with any family members. The lawyer was writing because Mom had left a will, and surprisingly, I was mentioned in it. I didn't go back for any kind of service. Whatever Mom had left me, I didn't want it. But curiosity made me respond to the lawyer, and we set up a video call to discuss the estate. Your mother left you a letter, the lawyer explained, an older woman with kind eyes, and a small inheritance, about $15,000. The bulk of the estate went to your father and sister, but she specifically set this aside for you. I don't want it. I understand this is complicated, she said gently, but perhaps you'd like to read the letter first. You can decide about the money after. She emailed me a scanned copy. I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. The letter was written in Mom's careful handwriting, dated 3 months before her death. Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I don't expect you to mourn me, and I don't expect you to forgive me. I'm writing this because I need you to know that I know. I know what we did to you. I know what I let happen. I know that every time you tried to tell me the truth, I chose not to believe you. I chose Claire over you again and again until you had no choice but to leave. The night of Claire's wedding, when I saw those recordings, I finally understood. I saw years of abuse that I'd enabled, years of pain that I'd dismissed. I saw you begging for help in 100 different ways, and I saw myself turning away every single time. I tried to find you after you left. I wanted to apologize, to explain, to somehow make things right, but you'd disappeared completely, and I realized that was probably what you needed. You needed to be free of us. Claire still lives with us. She never recovered from the scandal. She's angry and bitter, and she blames you for everything, even though I finally know that she brought it all on herself. Your father he's heartbroken. He knows we failed you. We both do. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking that you know I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't the mother you deserved. I'm sorry I chose comfort over truth again and again. I'm sorry I let my daughter suffer because I was too cowardly to admit I'd raised her wrong. The money I'm leaving you is from your grandmother. After you left, I found more of her things in storage. She'd set aside a separate inheritance for you, specifically instructed that it go to you and you alone. I'd hidden it away, planning to give it to Claire when she needed it. I'm ashamed of that now. This money is yours. It always was. I hope you've built a good life without us. I hope you're happy. I'm sorry, Emma, for everything, Mom. I read the letter 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and sat in my beautiful living room, in my beautiful house, in my beautiful life, and cried. Not for Mom. Not really. But for the girl I'd been, the one who'd spent years trying to earn love from people who'd already decided she wasn't worth it, for all the moments I'd wasted trying to be good enough, when the problem was never me. I cried because Mom's apology, however sincere, came too late. I cried because some things can't be fixed, even when everyone finally acknowledges they're broken. And then I dried my tears, accepted the inheritance, and moved on. 5 years later, I sold my second startup for $45 million. The app I developed had become the industry standard for mobile security, and a major tech company had made an offer I couldn't refuse. I was 29 years old and wealthier than I'd ever imagined possible. I'd appeared on the cover of Wired magazine. I'd given a TED Talk about cybersecurity. I'd established a scholarship fund for students from abusive homes, helping kids like me escape and build their own futures. I'd also started dating someone, a kind, funny software engineer named David who thought I was brilliant and never once tried to take advantage of me. We traveled together, cooked together, talked about maybe adopting a dog. It was normal and healthy and exactly what I'd never thought I'd have. Dad reached out around this time, not through lawyers, but directly, a friend request on LinkedIn, which I'd left open for professional purposes. I accepted, curious. He sent a message. Emma, I know I have no right to contact you. I just wanted you to know I'm proud of you. I'm sorry for everything. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, wanted to believe that maybe finally he understood. Part of me remembered every time he'd chosen Mom and Claire over me, every time he'd looked me in the eye and decided I was lying. In the end, I wrote back, "Thank you for the message. I appreciate the apology. I'm not ready for more than this, but I wish you well." He responded immediately. "I understand. You've built an amazing life. You deserved better from us. I'm sorry we couldn't see that sooner." That was it. No demands for reconciliation, no guilt trips, no expectations. Just acknowledgement and apology. It wasn't enough to repair our relationship, but it was something. Claire reached out when I was 32. Not directly, she wasn't brave enough for that. She sent a message through Jessica, who I still talk to regularly. "Your sister is asking about you," Jessica told me over video chat. "She found me on Facebook. She wants to know if you'd be willing to talk to her." What did you tell her? Nothing yet. I wanted to check with you first. I thought about it. Wondered what Claire could possibly want after all these years. Did she say why? She said she wants to apologize. She said she's been in therapy and her therapist suggested reaching out to make amends. Classic Claire, even her apology was about what would benefit her, part of some therapeutic exercise rather than genuine remorse. But I was curious despite myself. Tell her she can email me. One email. If she uses it to ask for money or make excuses, I'll block her. Jessica passed along the message, and 3 days later, Claire's email arrived. "Emma, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect you to respond. I just need to say this. And I need you to know that I finally understand what I did to you. I spent years blaming you for ruining my life. The wedding, the arrest, the scandal. I told myself it was all your fault, that you'd been jealous and vindictive and cruel. But the truth is, I ruined my own life. I did that to Tyler, I did that to myself, and before that, I spent our entire childhood making your life hell. I don't know why I did it. Maybe because Mom and Dad made it so easy. Maybe because I was insecure and making you small made me feel big. Maybe because I'm just not a very good person. I'm in therapy now. I'm working on myself. I have a job, nothing glamorous, just retail, and I'm living in a small apartment on my own. Dad helps me with rent sometimes, but mostly I'm supporting myself. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I see how much I hurt you, how much I stole from you, not just things, but your childhood, your sense of safety, your relationship with our parents. You deserved better. You deserved a family that protected you and celebrated you. Instead, you got us. I'm sorry, Emma, for all of it, for everything. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be happy. Claire. I read the email twice, looking for the trap, the manipulation, the request for money or favor that I knew had to be coming. But it wasn't there. The email was just an apology. Maybe Claire had changed. Maybe therapy had actually helped her become someone capable of acknowledging her mistakes. Or maybe this was just another performance, more sophisticated than the ones she'd pulled as a teenager. I'd never know for sure. And I realized I didn't need to know. I wrote back, "Claire, thank you for the apology. I appreciate you taking responsibility for your actions. I'm not ready for a relationship with you, and I'm not sure I ever will be. But I hope you continue to work on yourself and build a good life." Emma, a short, polite, final. I wasn't interested in rehabilitation or reconciliation. I'd already done the work of healing, and that healing didn't require their participation. I'm 35 now. It's been 19 years since I died in my first timeline. 16 years since I woke up in my 16-year-old body with a second chance. I've built an empire. 3 successful startups, all sold for significant profits. A venture capital firm that invests in companies founded by women and minorities. A nonprofit that provides legal and financial assistance to people escaping abusive families. My net worth is in the 9 figures. Now more money than I could spend in several lifetimes. But more than the money, more than the success, I've built a life. I'm married to David. We eloped in Bali last year, just the 2 of us, and an officiant on a beach at sunset. We have 2 dogs and a cat. We own a house in San Francisco and a cabin in Tahoe. We host Thanksgiving for our found family, friends from college, co-workers, people we've collected along the way who've become more than family ever was. I still don't talk to Claire. I had to exchange occasional emails with Dad, birthday wishes, holiday greetings, surface-level updates. He's retired now, living in a small condo in Florida. He seems content, or at least at peace with his choices. Claire is still in our hometown, still working retail, still single. According to Jessica, who maintains loose contact with her, Claire is actually doing okay. She's genuinely in recovery, has made real changes, has built a small life that doesn't involve manipulating or hurting people. I'm glad for her in an abstract way. I hope she continues to heal and grow, but I don't need to be part of that process. I've done my own healing, built my own peace, and that peace doesn't include the people who spent years trying to destroy me. Sometimes people ask if I regret cutting off my family so completely. They ask if I wish I'd given them another chance, tried to rebuild something. The answer is no, not even a little. Because I learned something crucial in my second life. You don't owe loyalty to people who've proven they won't protect you. You don't owe forgiveness to people who spent years showing you exactly who they are. You don't owe family anything more than you'd owe a stranger just because you share DNA. I built myself a new family. David, our friends, the community I've created through my work. These are people who choose me every day, who celebrate my victories and support me through challenges, who've never once made me feel like I'm too much or not enough. This is what victory looks like. Not revenge, but irrelevance. My family can't hurt me anymore because I've built a life so far beyond their reach that their opinions don't matter. Claire can't steal from me because I have more than she could even comprehend. Mom and Dad can't manipulate me because I don't need their approval. I won because I survived. I won because I thrived. I won because I turned pain into purpose and built something beautiful from the ashes of my first life. The necklace, Grandma's sapphire necklace that started this whole story, sits in a safe in my house. I never wear it. It's not about the necklace anymore, hasn't been for years. But I keep it as a reminder. This is what I saved, what I protected, what I refused to let them take. And every time I see it, I remember that 16-year-old girl who decided she deserved better, who fought for a future that seemed impossible, who refused to be a victim one more day. That girl saved my life, and I've spent every day since then making sure her sacrifice was worth it. I'm Emma Chen, self-made millionaire, CEO, philanthropist. I'm a wife, a friend, a mentor, a force for change in my industry and my community. I'm not the forgotten daughter, the scapegoat, the victim. I'm not defined by what they did to me or who they wanted me to be. I'm exactly who I chose to become. And that choice, that power is something no one can ever take away. This is my story, this is my victory, and it's only just beginning.